Sennheiser CX line are a set of audio products that sit below the Momentum line, at least in my opinion. They're mid-tier to budget-tier earphones and don't offer the same sort of plethora of features that the Momentum line does. However, in the key department when it comes to sound quality, they're pretty much sitting toe-to-toe. Now on review today are the CX True Wireless, a set of brand new True Wireless earbuds that can be found for around £120 in the UK. Now they follow on from their predecessors, the CX400BT, which are previously covered on the channel, and these earphones at the time of making this video can be found for around £90. Now if you want a comprehensive list of options that you might want to consider, do check them down in the description below. I've reviewed a whole host of different True Wireless earbuds from a variety of different manufacturers and their earphones that you might want to consider, and some that I will be referencing throughout this video. Now before proceeding with this detailed review, if you haven't already, I'd very much appreciate you guys subscribing and hitting that bell notification. It shows your support towards this review and of course the channel itself. So jumping straight into it, let's talk about the sound quality of these earphones, which is obviously one of the most important factors. Before doing so, you'll be intrigued to know how they connect. Well, they are Bluetooth earphones, as you might expect, but they connect over the SBC, AAC, or the aptX codecs, the latter being the better out of the three, and the one that I was using on my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. And before you ask, I had no video delay issues or any problems like that, and I had no lip sync issues either, so no problems to report, at least on my setup. But now in terms of the sound quality, now on the box there's a bass boost kind of logo that's slapped onto it, and according to Sennheiser they've introduced this bass boost function. Now I'm not sure if it's because I'm very much early when it comes to reviewing it, and even though I'm on the latest firmware, I found that the bass boost function really does absolutely nothing, at least not that I could hear in terms of my ears. Now as a result, the sub-bass is somewhat subdued. There is some sub-bass extension and you can definitely hear it, but on the whole I just found that it was a little lackluster. Comparing it to the likes of the Jabra Elite 75T or the Oppo Enco X, the Sennheiser earphones simply couldn't compete in this domain, let alone when it came to the mid-bass presence. The mid-bass presence sound again a little bit subdued, and in some ways were a little bit uncontrolled as well. I was expecting a little bit more precision and control by these earphones. Very much the same could be said about the CX400BT, by the way, so it's no real surprise that Sennheiser has used the same sort of fundamentals in terms of its bass reproduction. However, where it really does compete, and in fact set itself aside from pretty much all of its competitors in the sub £150 to even £200 type of price tag, is in terms of its mid-range department. Here it goes pretty much toe-to-toe with the top-tier Momentum True Wireless earphones offered by Sennheiser, and even the likes of the Grado GT220s. In this department, the mid-range is really commendable, and around 120 odd pounds, and even with the CX400BT, they do a phenomenal job of producing a very lifelike mid-range that sounds more forward. It's not pushed back, recessed, or giving you that V-shaped sound signature. As a result, you can see where the bass has been kind of subdued as a result of the mid-range being kind of pushed forwards. It therefore has this more Sennheiser sound signature. You even see this again planted on the front of the retail packaging where it says Sennheiser Sound. Now as for the highs, they do extend, however I did find myself having to EQ the treble quite substantially, and as a result I found that with the EQ added on via the app, which we'll talk about soon, I did find that the treble did extend relatively well. Still, it did miss that sort of high-end clarity that you'd expect in higher tier earphones, including the likes of the Oppo Jabra and even the Momentum line from Sennheiser themselves. Now as for the Soundstage, it does a decent job. Here is where the CX line really does show its weaknesses, quote unquote, in comparison to the Momentum line, where the earphone doesn't sound as wide or as deep as the likes of the Momentum earphones, and instead the CX earphones do a little bit more of an intimate soundstage. Now don't get me wrong, the accuracy and in terms of the tonality is phenomenal. The instrument separation is really good as well. Just the width and depth feels just a little bit more close sounding. Now in comparison to some other earphones that I was referencing, such as the Jabras, the Oppo earphones, or indeed some one more earphones out there on the market, I think they're pretty much equivalent. The only earphones that I can think of which cost less than the CX earphones which offer a wider and deeper soundstage, are the likes of the creative Outlier Air, V1 or even the V2, and those alongside the Grado and the Sennheiser top tier earphones are the only true wireless earphones where I've felt produce a more airy and open soundstage. Now with the sound quality out of the way, let's get on to recording quality, and everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the CX True Wireless. What I will say subjectively is that my voice does sound a little bit tinny. The bass of my voice, if that makes sense, doesn't come out as clearly as you might expect, and when faced in more busy environments, the CX True Wireless are very much like their predecessors, that they suffer from a little bit of the environment noise around them. And straight away, hopefully you'll be able to hear the difference over here with the Jabra Elite 75T, which I often use as a reference in my True Wireless earbud reviews, whereby the Jabras just sound a little bit more well-rounded and don't sound as tinny as the Sennheiser earphones that I just tested. So moving on, we get onto the app, and first off I do have to talk about the equalizer function. You can see here I've added a few notches to the bass and a few extra notches to the treble, and I've left the mid-range untouched. I found that if you do EQ the mid-range, it does produce a little bit more of an artificial sound, and therefore I just preferred it not being tinkered with. I do also like the fact that Sennheiser have retained that regular 3-band equalizer rather than using this kind of fancy looking one that they came up with, the Momentum, and it was, well, not really liked by a lot of individuals, including myself. Now here, in terms of the presets, you can choose between customizing your own preset or going for the neutral or the default presets that are set by Sennheiser, and then you've got the bass boost function, which I talked about before, and I found rather pointless in terms of the overall sound that it increases, or in terms of, well, it doesn't increase. In this case, the bass EQ actually does a lot more, well, gives you a bit more of a bass presence. Now in terms of connections, you can see over here there's a little disclaimer at the bottom where it says you can only pair up one device to your earphones, and indeed this don't support multi-point Bluetooth. Now on that note of connections, I should mention in terms of the master drive setup. Now here both the left and the right drivers can be used independently from each other, which make it great for those people who rather use one earphone at a time. Unlike other earphones out there on the market, however, these earphones aren't as seamless when it comes to their transition between the left and right driver. So for example, if you got both earphones in your ear and you put, let's say, the left earbud back into the case and have the right earbud still in your ear, the music will pause, the earphones will disconnect, and then they'll reconnect and therefore repair to your device, in my case my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, and then allow you to recommence your music or whatever you were listening to. Whereas other manufacturers out there, specifically like One More for example, have nailed the execution of this, where it's a seamless transition between plugging the earphones or earbuds back into their case or taking them out. That's not quite the same that could be said about the Sennheiser earphones. Now moving on, we have got the cog icon at the top right, and you've got the auto power off if you can disable it, or you can extend the duration. You've also got the current codec that's being used. It should show aptX usually, and it is usually shown as aptX, at least on my device. As for the side tone, it allows you to basically hear yourself when you're on a call. Then you've got the earbud communication, the controls, and here the controls can be customized, but it's pretty much limited to what you can do. In other words, everything you can see over here is effectively all you can do with the earphones, but quite frankly, what else are you going to want to do? It's just nice to see that the buttons can be customized per different function, so therefore you're not limited to, let's say, volume up and down on certain functions, for example, that you'd find on the One More earphones, and whereas on the Sennheiser you can customize it pretty much to your heart's content depending on what the functions you want. Then moving on from that, you've got the tone and voice prompts. You can have them enable or disable, the paired devices to the earphones, and then the firmware. As you can see right now, I'm not on the latest firmware, but you can always check for the firmware updates via here. And a small little disclaimer, the firmware updates take an absolute age, so do bear that in mind if you're going to be using this on the go and wanting to upgrade a firmware. Make sure you're at home because it takes over 40 minutes. So next up comes build quality and design, and here the earphones looked apart. At least the earphones that I have come in an all black design. They look really nice and they're very much reminiscent of their CX400 BT siblings. In this case, I had no problems when it comes to fit, although not the earphones that I would personally use when it comes to, well, intense gym workouts or runs. While they don't exactly fall out of my ear, if I was was sweating in terms of my ear and I was to shake my head vigorously, I think they would fall out. I did mention before about the touch sensitive buttons, so they're placed in terms of where the pad might be located, as you might expect. And then there's a little LED found within the inner part of the earphone, and as you can see, the earphones are currently connected and they're not flashing blue or red in any way, which is good because some other earphones out there on the market do so and detract from the overall look. As for the fit, I should also mention they have a silicone bud. The medium buds are fitted on right now, and as you can see in the package, you've got the small, extra small and large as well. Now, as for the case, it's again very reminiscent to the CX400BT. It's got a Type-C input at the back, and yes, you do have a Type-C to Type-A cable. It's a very short one, but that is included in the package, but you can of course recharge this with another regular Type-C input, and in terms of recharging time, it'll take around 1 to 2 hours. Now, as for the earphones themselves, they last around 9 hours on a single charge, which is up from the 7 hours of their predecessors. As for the case, it provides a total of 27 hours. In other words, 18 hours of the case and 9 hours of the earphones, tots up to 27 hours in total. And again, that's up from the total 20 hours that you got with the CX400BT. Effectively, you're getting a longer battery life and a earphone which is effectively pretty much the same size as its predecessors. Now, elsewhere, I should mention that the earphones themselves are IPX4 rated, which is again a step up from its predecessors, and therefore means that they're a little bit more splash resistant, not to say they're waterproof. However, most earphones nowadays have got some sort of IP rating, so it's not overly to shout about, but something I should point out specifically for CX400BT owners that are looking to potentially upgrade to these earphones. And so this all leads me on to my verdict. What do I make about the CX True Wireless? Well, quite frankly, I can see where Sennheiser have improved their product. Splash resistance, extra battery life, and while the bass boost function didn't quite work for me, the overall sound signature is still very Sennheiser-like. The thing is you should consider is that the CX400BT are cheaper and effectively give you the same sort of package, not even in terms of a style point of view, but even in terms of a sound quality point of view, which will of course be of importance to a lot of people out there. So as a result, if you want good mid-range sounding earphones and you don't care too much about the overall battery life, then consider the CX400BT instead. If however you want a bit better battery life and you still want that Sennheiser sound signature, then I can't see myself recommending any other earphone other than the CX True Wireless. However, for me, my top pick and the best all-rounder would be the Jabra Elite 75T, which sits at around £130 to £150. So I know it's a bit of a premium, but depending on when you buy them, you can even find them sometimes even cheaper than the CX True Wireless. Elsewhere, you've got the likes of the Oppo Enco X, one of my favourite True Wireless earphones. And these earphones do fluctuate in price very much like the Jabras, but they offer a fantastic ANC quality, and something that you should definitely not sleep on. Effectively, what I'm trying to say over here is the CX True Wireless is a good overall package, but there's some alternatives that you might consider, and ones that might tick your box a little bit more, like it does for me, and therefore would take my recommendation. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this independent, detailed review. If you've found that it's helped you make your informed decision, no matter what earphone you go for, definitely do drop a like and subscribe and hit that bell notification. It'd be greatly appreciated. Alright, I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.